Public. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is an update from the DOT on 11th Avenue. Who's presenting that?
We have Eileen and Ogwin here from our bike team, but just real quick, basically this is an update on our presentation from last year. We've been implementing over the course of the last 2 years our protected bike lanes on 38th and 39th Street, just wrapping up. And at the after we presented, the community board asked for us to look at putting the segment of 11th Avenue, which is part of the connection over to the Greenway, into the roadway instead of on the sidewalk, which was our original proposal. So we have an updated design for that, which does address those concerns and puts it into the roadway. So I'll let Ogwin, I think, just kind of walk through the design real quick, explaining it.
Okay, great.
Do you want me to put it up on the screen, the images from earlier?
Oh, if you have,
pull them up. Or,
I think they do it only from the committee and from the board. So if you want to pull them up, Janine, that would be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
these are the diagrams that we were sent about with 40th Street at 11th Avenue.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, those are very helpful diagrams for us to be looking at.
all right, so today I'll be talking, oh, let me zoom in. Great. Right, so today I'll be talking through those updates for 40th and 11th Avenue. And like Kim mentioned, those were presented with 38th and 39th. And so we just want to provide some updates following your comments. So the map that's shown here at the top highlights in purple the affected blocks on 11th Avenue and 40th Street that would provide cyclists with a connection from the curbside lanes on 38th and 39th over to the Hudson River Greenway entrance at 40th Street. So over the next few pages, I'll provide a breakdown of the cross sections for each of the numbered segments that you see here. But at the end, we'll also share a top-down view plan of 11th Avenue for a better sense of how the sections work together. So let's scroll down. So starting on 40th Street, where cyclists will be able to make the connection to the Hudson River Greenway entrance at 12th Avenue. There's currently one travel lane in each direction. And so the width varies in the existing conditions at different points of the block. But in the proposed, we would use the available space to provide a two-way Jersey barrier protected bike path along the south curb. And this is the same design that we presented in July with 38th and 39th for installation following the completion of the Javits Center expansion work in that area. But the design would also accommodate turns from the quote bus depot and the driveways on the south curb. Just the next page. So next on 11th Avenue between 42nd and 41st Street, cyclists are using the existing bike lane north of 42nd Street. And currently there is no bike lane that continues south and 6 southbound moving lane, which include a bus lane. So in the proposed, we would shift buses away from the curb into the second travel lane to provide a shared bike lane that would work to close the gap in the network, but also allow us to accommodate the right turns and the bus stop at 42nd Street. The change to the bus lane here, as well as further south on 11th Avenue, is something we discussed with MTA and New York City Transit to best accommodate the bus operations on 11th Avenue and to inform the quote bus depot on 40th and 41st Street. Just scroll down a little bit. So heading further south between 41st and 40th Street, we would look to do something similar. Again, currently there are 5 southbound travel lanes and 1 bus lane on the west curb, which is used as layover space. And so in the proposed, we would shift buses again away from the curb to provide a curbside bollard protected bike lane in one direction. Between 40th and 39th Street, 11th Avenue becomes two-way with 2 southbound moving lanes and bus layover space along the west curb and 3 northbound turn lanes into the tunnel entrance at 40th Street. So in the proposed, we would look to relocate the bus layover space on the west curb to provide a two-way barrier protected bike path. The section also shows the removal of a northbound turn lane, and that comes out of our traffic engineering and planning group's plans for this area. And those improvements were also previously presented to the board. Lastly, on 11th Avenue between 39th and 38th Street, there are currently 3 travel lanes in each direction and 1 southbound bus lane. Like the previous blocks, we would also look to shift the buses away from the curb to provide a one-way bollard protected curbside bike lane. But in addition, we would also look to turn 1 travel lane in each direction to dedicated turn lanes with pedestrian islands at the intersections. And so this overview provides a better sense of how each section will work to provide the connections from 38th to 39th Street over to the Hudson River Greenway at 40th. So starting at the existing shared lane facility at 42nd Street, that you see indicated there, we would direct cyclists to continue south to make the connection at 40th Street with shared markings. And again, as you can see, this would allow us to accommodate the bus stops and the turns into the depot using our typical bus stop treatments that we also have used on other curbside bike lanes. And it also sets us up for the bus lane removal on the following block, or rather the removal of the layover space between 41st and 40th Street, where we would also have, if you could just scroll down, a curbside bollard protected bike lanes. It's a little cut off. And so from there, cyclists could continue to use this path to make the connection over to the two-way path on 40th Street. And then between 40th and 39th, the bike lane becomes two-way, if you could just scroll back up to the top. And this would just allow us to accommodate cyclists going to the Greenway from 39th Street, which is westbound. And then from there, further south, the bike lane would become one-way again for cyclists who are continuing eastbound at 38th Street. And then at the very bottom, if you could just scroll down, you'll see the proposed pedestrian islands at that intersection, which we would propose for 2022 implementation. Thank you.
So I think that's all for the graphics and explaining the project. And as far as timeline, we are hoping to get this in this season. I think, as many of you may know, at the end of the year, it becomes challenging to try to get all of our projects scheduled, but that is the goal, and except for the concrete, which would follow, I believe, next year. But we'll keep you posted once we have a firmer date.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's much appreciated, and the clear graphics. I have one quick question. I'll throw it to Christine. So I'm glad to hear that the bike lanes are protected. In some instances, I heard that they were protected with Jersey barriers, and in others, I heard they were protected with bollards. Was that being used interchangeably as a term, or is it actually two different methods of protection?
We typically use the Jersey barriers when we have a two-way path because we have that contraflow condition. So it is the different types of designs.
Okay, so some areas were in fact Jersey barriers and some were bollards. Okay, based on two-way or one-way.
Exactly.
Great. Thanks for the clarification. Christine, did you have questions?
Yes, I mentioned already, but I think the section which is shared with cars is really not ideal, and especially because a lot of the MTA buses are turning at Dyer Avenue instead of continuing on 42nd and turning left on 11. And so with the volume being not that much, and a lot of other buses and other vehicles using that as a parking I don't think I think we should really just make it a dedicated space. And Kimberly, I think you answer that.
Yeah, I think we are happy to keep looking at that location. We do need to do a little more analysis to make that kind of a change and continue to work with the MTA on that. But I think we're totally open to exploring it further. We just want to make sure we can get in the other changes as soon as possible.
Right.
All right, do we have questions from the committee?
Like, raise his hand.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry I wasn't at the earlier discussion of this, but I'm curious in diagram 4, the 11th Avenue between 39th and 40th, you know, what the rationale was for the extension of the median there and whether it's an enticing place for pedestrians to wait en route across and if that creates a safety hazard.
Sure. So that might be best answered if you're able to look at the last page, that top-down view that Owain shared earlier. Basically, that's part of the changes from traffic engineering and planning, where they're consolidating the turning lanes into the tunnel approach. So that cleans up that intersection there. Are you able to look at that last page?
Yeah, I see that.
So basically, it used to be 3, and now it will be 2 northbound right turns. So that's basically making sure that there's only 2 lanes feeding onto 40th Street. That pedestrian island is already in place, so that will stay there as well. The channelization isn't really intended for pedestrian use. It's just really to clean up those vehicle movements.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? I don't see any other hands up, Janine.
I don't see anyone else. I'll bring over Eric Eisenhower from the public.
Yes, please. Do we have any?
Hi.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. Christine probably knows what I'm going to ask because I've been hounding her for about 2 years to bug the DOT about this. But I'm just wondering, it seems like, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, the DOT drew up plans for a protected bike lane on 10th Avenue. I'm just wondering when the DOT is planning on actually presenting that to CB4. This is the one, this is going down to 14th Street from the West 50s.
We are currently working on developing a proposal for that project, and we hope to bring something in 2022 to the board.
So like by December 31st, 2022?
That's the end of 2022, yes, but hopefully sooner than that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I see we also have a Q&A question. Is there any discussion about protected bike access to the Greenway on the south side of Javits, the Javits Center along West 34th Street?
We don't know.
So this project, the most direct connection is by using 40th Street because it's the closest to 38th and 39th. A connection along 34th Street would need to be, a separate future improvement that also links that other part of 11th Avenue. Right now, 34th doesn't link to, there's no facility further south on 11th. So, we would want to see connections go in with that, which is not currently proposed in this version.
Understood. So not at this time. Okay. Do we have any more other questions from the public, Janine? Oh, I see another one popped up.
No one from the public, but Tina Nelson has her hand up.
Tina?
Yeah, just a quick question. I'm quite unfamiliar with this, but it seems like given the changes, it might impact traffic. Has there been any study that I missed, and I could have very easily missed, any studies relating to the impact on traffic given some lanes will be taken away?
Yeah, so I think, they can, Owain and Eileen can expand on this if needed, but essentially we came in June, I believe, with a presentation for this area that was really related to the removal of those lanes in the redesign of 40th Street. But Eileen and Ogwin, if you want to expand on that.
Let me take that. Tina, if you go to that area of the neighborhood, you will see that in that direction between 42nd and 34, the traffic is fairly light in that direction. There is a lot of traffic going to the tunnel, but the contra traffic is very, very light.
Okay, thank you.
So these are lanes which are really kind of underused in a sense.
Thanks.
And Charlie, the answer to that, Charles, yeah, I mean, that was my point about parking. Parking in, I think there will be parking in the shared lane. Are you talking about above 42nd Street? Charles, can you clarify your questions? Yeah.
I just brought him over. He should be able to speak.
Right.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, I live on 54th Street, and I've noticed that, you know, there's a green painted lane on 54th next to Dwight Clinton that just every day has cars from the auto dealerships and mechanics across the street. And I've also noticed on the existing 11th Avenue lane starting at 54th but going south, it's pretty common to see cars sometimes use it as a shortcut when there's back-to-back traffic. You'll see a car just start driving in it. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we can protect against this in future extensions.
I think we should add those two things because a number of people have complained to me about the 11th, both of those things. So we may want to add that in our letter, in addition, you know, in a related subject.
Yeah, like an enforcement paragraph.
Well, yeah, or an upgrade of the protection. 54 would be between what and what, Charles?
Between the West Side Highway and 11th Avenue. They painted a green lane a year or two ago, which looks nice, but there's not even bollards there. So it's just used as parking very frequently.
So it's West Side and 11th Avenue, and then 54 going down south. And then I would add as a resolution, I'd like to talk about the shared portion and say it really should be upgraded to a full bike lane. I think with those three items, if there is no other, I mean, Dale, that would be.
So that sounds like a resolution in formation.
Yes.
Yeah. So the summary is the proposed changes you were suggesting, and the looking into some modifications to prevent what Charlie's talking about, which is
right.
Like vehicles on the green strip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a motion. Do we have a motion?
I make that motion to do that.
Okay.
And also, I would make also a suggestion to Charlie is that to get the reported app, and when you see it, take a picture and automatically send to the community board, the precinct, and to Twitter. And this way, even if it's not enforced, the community board has a record of it, and 311.
That's good to know. Thanks.
So for everyone, reported app does that, and it contacts those people for you automatically, especially when you take a photo.
That's a good suggestion, David. Do we have a second on the motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Thank you. So the committee is voting on the resolution in response to this presentation. All those in favor? I can't tell.
Aye.
And we are otherwise very pleased with that proposal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really nice to see the full protection of the lanes. And do we have any opposed or voting non-eligible? Okay, so I assume that motion passes, although I can't see the outcome from here. All right. So we're moving. Thank you so much for the presentation, everyone. Really appreciate the clarity of the graphic presentation as well. Okay, moving on to the item number 2 is a presentation. This is an application for bollards along 66 Hudson Boulevard, which is 34th between 10th Avenue and Hudson Boulevard East. Who do we have here that's presenting?
Hi, this is Amir Sperling from Tishman Speyer. I'm one of the presenters.
How are you?
Good, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present. With me are a couple of my colleagues, Payman Lodi and Eleftherios Pitas, and then also joined by Timothy Ward, who's a senior associate at Langen, which is the civil engineer for the project. So unless there's anyone wants to say anything at the start from the committee, I could just launch right into the slides that are on the screen. Should I just?
That would be great. Thank you.
Great. So during our last appearance in front of this committee, which was back in April, we presented and we're grateful for the committee's support of a distinctive sidewalk plan for the spiral. And as some of the committee members might recall, one of the elements comprising that plan is a set of perimeter sidewalk bollards surrounding the site. So we're here this evening to share plans that have been approved by the various required city agencies and to seek your support for a revocable consent covering those bollards. But first, just a very quick refresher on the spiral for those who may not know. It's a 2.8 million square foot Class A office development designed by Bjark Ingels Group and currently under construction. And when the building opens next year, it'll house a number of major office tenants such as Pfizer, which is relocating its global headquarters to the building, as well as an asset manager, Alliance Bernstein, and a global law firm, which is Debevoise and Plimpton. As the maps on the next slide indicate, the spiral is located on the entire block, bounded by West 34th and 35th Streets, 10th Avenue, and Hudson Boulevard East, immediately across from Block 2 of Bella Abzug Park and the northern entrance for the 7 train. The next slide shows a rendering of the completed building. And again, when last time we talked about how the building's architecture, including the distinctive outdoor terraces, underscore Tishman Speyer's dedication to the wellness of our customers, their employees and guests. And that commitment applies equally to providing a safe and secure environment in and around the building. So just as we've done at Rockefeller Center, which is another of our assets, and indeed across our entire portfolio, our global security team conducted a threat assessment of the spiral. And the conclusion was that given the security considerations relating both to the building's location and its tenant profile, high impact bollards are appropriate in order to protect both pedestrians and building occupants. And importantly, that conclusion was subsequently confirmed following a thorough review by the NYPD's counterterrorism unit, which has to also bless these kinds of implementations. So when the committee approved our distinctive sidewalk materials back in April, we shared the rendering that's on the next slide, which shows the bollards in relation to our planned tree pits and hardscape. If it's possible to shift over to the next slide. Thank you. So as a reminder, the bollards themselves are covered in non-directional stainless steel, which is inspired by materials used both within the lobby and on the building's outdoor terraces. And while it's more expensive than other options, we chose stainless steel for its durability. Scratches blend into the finish and avoid obvious wear and tear over time. I also want to emphasize that we feel particularly strongly that the bollards should be as slim and unobtrusive as possible. And as a result, we limited them to a 3-foot height and 12-inch diameter, which are the threshold dimensions that are needed to satisfy the required K-12 rating around the site, which pertains to, the rating required to stop a vehicle of a certain weight traveling at a certain speed. But we can get into the specifics if it's helpful. One last note on this slide. The bollards stand only 18 inches from the curb line, which is intended to minimize their impact on sidewalk circulation. And we'll revisit that point in a slide or two. But the next slide, which was also part of our April presentation to this committee, shows the proposed locations of the bollards, which are highlighted in pink. And I want to note at the outset that our revocable consent application, including these specific locations, has been reviewed and approved by the applicable agencies, including DOT, the FDNY, DEP, Parks, Con Ed, and New York City Transit, to ensure they meet all spacing requirements relating to hydrants, catch basins, transformer vaults, and so forth. And importantly, when we established the bollard locations, we were careful to balance the security considerations against the impacts on the public realm, including pedestrian flow and, critically, compliance with ADA rules and best practices. So for instance, we're maximizing the distance between bollards while still meeting security requirements. And specifically, the bollards are spaced 5 feet apart, center on center, which provides 4 feet of clearance from bollard edge to bollard edge. And that spacing meets ADA requirements. It also is the standard width for security bollard projects throughout New York City. So taken together, that spacing results in 238 bollards along the site's perimeter, 7 of which are located adjacent to the building's 35th Street loading dock, and therefore those bollards are operable, meaning they rise and lower. And 22 of the bollards are next to DOT streetlights and are therefore manually removable as needed to facilitate repair and maintenance work. The next and final slide, apart from a few sidewalk renderings in case it's of interest, is a close-up plan view of the southeast corner of the spiral at 34th Street and 10th Avenue. And there are 2 takeaways we wanted to highlight. The first is you can see the ADA compliant 4-foot clear widths at both pedestrian crossings, southbound across 34th and eastbound across 10th Avenue. And again, those are analogous at all 4 corners. We just are showing you one so that it's more easy to see on screen. But second, the sidewalk widths, even after accounting for the bollards and also tree pits, are generous along both frontages. And again, those are analogous on all 4 corners. So again, apart from a few renderings on the next several slides, which we could quickly flip through, they're the same ones we showed in April, and this one's on 34th Street next to a dedicated entrance for Pfizer. This one's on Hudson Boulevard. The next one is on 35th Street on the north side of the site, and this is the east side on 10th Avenue. So apart from those renderings, that really concludes the slides I wanted to cover with you. And again, we truly appreciate the committee's time, and I'd be pleased, or my colleagues, to address any questions.
Great, thank you so much. You anticipated my question with the detail of the pedestrian ramp, so that's appreciated.
Sure.
Christine, do you have any questions? Blake, is your hand up from before, or do you have a question on this issue as well?
Small question on this one, and it was about the bollards and the tendency for people to put things on the bollards if they have a flat top, or for the top to get dirty over time. Is it just a absolutely flat top, or is there the potential to have it be designed in a different way to discourage that sort of behavior?
Yeah, Tim Ward or Eleftherios can chime in. I believe it's a flat top, but let me just, and we'd be concerned, frankly, about the same concerns that you just raised. So maybe let me just speak to sort of our operational approach to not just this site, but all of our sites. We're going to have, both security and our property management team, on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Clearly, we would want to immediately remove anything that was attached to or placed on top of bollards. And as far as the cleaning is concerned, again, I'm glad you mentioned that. That was one of the considerations, and I sort of referenced this in the presentation, but for that stainless steel and that non-directional finish, it's actually fairly impervious to not only, deliberate, attempts to paint or do other things on it, but also it looks really good even as it starts to get some of the naturally occurring dirt, and they'll be cleaned as well.
Thank you.
Viren, did you have a question?
Yes, just very quick question. You got 238 or 232 bollards. I'm just wondering, might there be a possibility for you to think of some other sort of more interesting ways of achieving the same goal? For example, instead of so many bollards, if you actually put about combining them with bioswales or sort of low-rise planters and whatnot, it might be a better streetscape rather than this fortified look around the building, because it's this logic. Every single building that comes up in the neighborhood would want to do the same thing. And I'm not, what do you call it? I'm not underestimating the threat that sort of you described. But at the same time, and it's a community that lives there, can we make it a little more sort of, the landscape strategy much more than simply just putting this kind of, what happened in Wall Street doesn't need to happen here.
Yeah, and thank you for the question. And I want to say that we, again, both as members of the community and as, a very hospitality oriented organization, we also would prefer, if we could do away with the bollards. We actually challenged our team to see whether that same kind of level of required security would be achievable through other methods, including the one you mentioned. And unfortunately, just based on that standard, which we need to meet, this K-12 standard, which requires a crash or penetration of a vehicle that is 15,000 pounds traveling at up to 50 miles an hour. The bollards were really the only thing that could meet that standard. Now, having said that, I think when we've taken great care so that when you look at the site from across the street or standing right on the sidewalk there, we think what your eyes are going to get drawn to are really more of that landscaping that you mentioned. So we absolutely maximize the number of trees around the perimeter. We have 41 trees, including a double row of them along 34th Street. And I think we showed a rendering of that planter area. So we think it's going to be a very lush perimeter, notwithstanding the bollards. And as I said, we even though we have bollards, we tried to limit both the height and width of them to the minimum necessary to achieve the objective.
Just as a follow-up, I'm not suggesting that you do away with all the bollards. You could use the number, and if you really think about appropriate landscape strategy, I don't know exactly what that could be. I mean, I can actually come up with a lot of ideas, but that's not what this meeting is about. I'm sure your team can look into that, because we've used landscaping over history very strategically, where we actually provide safety, security at the same time, a much nicer streetscape. So I think such a fantastic building that Bianca Ingalls is proposing, this could be something that could be further explored. And I think it could even become an example for others to follow, a better example. That's my suggestion. Last question I'm going to ask is the number of bollards that you have. There would be drop-off and loading locations, but not loading, but the cars will stop by and they might, people might open the doors and whatnot. So that's another concern. Have you taken that into account as well?
Right. So that's actually part of the consideration behind.
Sorry, my question is two parts. So would you please answer both of them? No. The first part was about, is there a chance that your team would take another look at potentially combining bollards with other kind of landscape, streetscape strategy? And my second question is about, the door swing for cars that would stop by.
Right. Well, with respect to your first question, again, I appreciate the sentiment. I think the challenge is that, what you want to avoid is a weak point in the perimeter, because that's the one that's most likely to be exploited in the event of someone wanting to damage the property or people on the sidewalk. So again, we did challenge our team to try to do without bollards or with fewer bollards. But again, both between our global security team, but importantly, the NYPD's counterterrorism unit, which has expertise in this arena, what we came up with, we think is the right balance between both considerations that you raised. I don't have a problem going back and asking one more time. Certainly not opposed to that, but I just want to be transparent and realistic with you about the likely outcome.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. It would be great if you can go back to the drawing board and do some more research. At the same time, one last quick thing that I would suggest, NYPD is not the designers. We are the design. Your team is a team of designers. I think it's a design problem as much as it is safety and security question. So keep that in mind. As designers, you come up with plans.
Right.
Thank you.
Fair point. And then you had asked also about doors. I mean, clearly that I won't try to mislead and say that isn't a possibility. What we've done to, among other things, to try to reduce that likelihood is as I said, to inset the bollards from the curb. It's about a foot and a half. It's not perfect, but that's a measure that we can use without moving them so far into the sidewalk that they start to impede pedestrian flow.
Thank you for those answers.
I think Tim from Langen wanted to chime in on that point.
Tim, I don't think we're hearing you.
Tim, we can't hear you.
Sorry, how about now?
Great.
I was just going to mention the 18-inch offset is the standard offset for this type of street infrastructure throughout the city. So bollards for fire hydrants, other bollards. So drivers used to driving in the city, you're perhaps parking 6 inches off the curb, and that's what you're looking for. When you're opening your doors. So that's typical. So it's in line with practices throughout the city.
Thank you.
My preference would have been that you put your bollard completely against the curb. I don't think we should be worried about whether the cars are opening their doors or not. And I would rather keep more space for pedestrian with all those encroachment. Then everybody says, oh, the sidewalk is so much, but it's not, because you have all those things on the sidewalk. So that's not something I think we should be concerned about.
Do we have any more questions from the committee? I don't see any hands raised.
Yeah, do we have questions from the public?
Are there any hands from the public, Janine?
Yeah, that was Eric and Chris LeBron.
Okay.
Eric.
Hey, I had another question about pedestrian flow. So I don't know if you guys are responsible for this, but if you look like around the vessel, there's a bunch of poles around that block, and they keep vehicles out, which is great for safety reasons. But they also have chains strung between them, which badly restricts pedestrian flow. I am just wondering whether you can commit at this time that these bollards are not going to become part of some structure that restricts pedestrian flow beyond the bollards themselves.
Yeah, Eric, thanks for the question. And I can confirm we have absolutely no plans of putting any chains or other structure in between or attached to the
bollard. But can you confirm you will not?
That's what he said.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
We have, like I said, we have absolutely no plans to do that now or future plans.
And the DOT would prohibit that, because that wouldn't be part of the revocable consent. That wouldn't be allowed by DOT. I think perhaps
they only allowed it as related.
Perhaps that's on their private property.
Well, it's very frustrating. I agree with Eric. It's really horrible.
Did we have a question from Crystal Braun?
Yes, thank you, Dale. Good evening, everybody. Amir, I just wanted to echo Christine's sentiment about encroachment on pedestrian space. It is. I'm on CB4. I'm on the environmental committee and on the land use committee for Hudson Yards and Clinton House Kitchen, and we've seen this before. We were really excited about having the extended pedestrian space, and I have a real reservation about flow and the encroachment of the bollards. Second is just an environmental point that Viren also picked up. Like I said, I'm on the environmental and parks committee. Bioswales, I'm almost certain that this area is in the 100-year flood zone. And I didn't see any design that responded to the need to address rain and flash flooding. So could you at least address the latter?
Sure, and thanks for your question. Again, I think the 18 inches, and Tim, you feel free to chime in. I think that's a standard offset from
Amir, please, one second. I didn't want to know about I just wanted to state that I was echoing the sentiments of Christine. The question that I was hoping to get answered and expanded on is whether or not your team could design bioswales to address the 100-year flood zone plain that these buildings exist in versus. Right. So, like, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Tim Ward from Langen again. The building doesn't fall within the 100-year floodplain. That starts further down 34th Street towards the Hudson. Thankfully, it doesn't extend this far back up 34th Street, which is good.
Yeah, I'll just
okay. So if it doesn't exist in the floodplain, we did experience extreme flash flooding throughout the city, and I'm just hoping that we consider that these anomalies of yesteryear are the normal standard for large storms and precipitation today. That's all. And so in addressing Viren's concern and my concern with bioswales and an ability to absorb some excess water when there are rains, and I used to work in Hudson Yards, and we've experienced flooding on those sidewalks before. I think, whatever wasn't addressed 10 years ago when we were dealing with Hudson Yards, we certainly need to address now.
Yeah, it's a paradigm shift. But perhaps we could look at the section. The rendering of the section actually helps. There's two things I think I'll just point out to you.
This is page 4 of the deck.
So two things. So the street trees have actually been designed, and it's kind of you can kind of make it out here. There's actually silver cells beneath the street trees. So for two reasons. So the sidewalk and those planters have been designed. So the silver cells are a storage medium, kind of like egg crates that are going to sit beneath, and that's helpful because it absorbs surface water runoff, which is good to your point about the increased rainfall, but it also helps the trees. It's very good for the trees. Part of the reason that you can see here, the actual, your standard tree pit is 5 by 10 foot. Here we've got much larger tree pits, which is good to absorb the water, and we've got those silver cells. And then we mentioned about the sidewalk setback. Along the property line, there are a series of trench drains, which prevent water from the site discharging into the roadway, and that's tied back into the building. And then we have detention tanks within the building, and which meet the DEP's latest standards, which are very restrictive in terms of runoff. The entire site, it's something like one CFS of discharge. So very large stormwater tanks within the building to address the runoff. And then these silver cells beneath the street trees to help address runoff and capture water.
Thank you. Just one last question, and it's about this panel real quick. So I noted that, and I also noted that there's also a drop off for the entrance. There are stairs. You have to apologize. I'm outside. It's a beautiful day. But does that also address water coming in from the street itself onto the sidewalk? In other words, does it help water not sit and pool on the streets concurrent with the sidewalk space?
Yeah, I can tell you. So actually, we've had to replace a couple of catch basins or improve a couple of catch basins as part of this project. So we've looked at the street grading with DEP and have designed those replacement catch basins to address that surface water, and there will not be ponding on the street.
Tim, I think the point that is being made by Chris is the fact that even when the catch basin are in the right place, the surface, the resurfacing of the street is so poor quality and so uneven that in fact pools of water are created along the curb. And I think he's asking, what have you done about that?
That's exactly right, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. So as part of the project, the curb line, or the installation of the bollards, will see the curb line replaced around the entirety of the project. The roadway is going to be resurfaced to the center line plus 5 feet. So going beyond the crown of the roadway will be completely milled and resurfaced as part of the project. So once construction's complete, with the tower, so that the construction, those heavy loads don't cause further issues to the roadway. It's going to be completely milled and resurfaced, so we'll have a nice clean roadway.
Well, except that's exactly our problem, is that on most of the street the surface is resurfaced and milled, but it is done in such a way that there are pool of waters because the slope is not perfect, and these companies are not interested in doing precision interface to the sidewalk. And so
yeah, I see that a lot.
Right. So what are you going to do in your final process?
Sure. The good news, often when often when you find those problems, it's because there's been like a localized intervention. So we may be trenching for a utility, or you're doing a very small scale replacement that therefore, when they put that trench in and then they resurface, you see that drop just for that utility. We see that a lot, right? Now, in our case, the utility work's going to be performed, so that's complete. The new curb is going to go in, and then it's a holistic resurfacing. So when you're relaying the roadway and doing a sort of a patch, like a 4-foot patch versus the entirety of the roadway, you get a very different performance out of it.
Have you considered doing the 18 inches from the curb in cement instead of asphalt?
I see some advantages to that, and we see that in some spots. It's just that's not a standard for the DOT.
No, we are not talking about standard here, but the standard of the DOT is really horrible. So we cannot go by the standard of the DOT. We have to, and especially as you know, we are working on making this segment a shared street. And so we have some opportunity with the DOT to discuss materials and the way the materials, and even I would say we could even discuss whether the water, the street should be sloped to the center and not to the sides, which would be very different. But that's the way certain streets are done. So I think we'd like to hear that you're open to that, and if we have such a suggestion, you could consider it and embrace it.
Yeah, I think I'd have to. It seems like that's perhaps something the team could discuss. I guess separate from the kind of revocable consent process, because that doesn't really impact the bollards, which is useful, right? Because it can sort of, that discussion could be a little detached.
But Christine,
no, I'm not. I mean, it's not going to be a condition of your bollard approval. We understand that.
Christine, we're happy to. I mean, I think it's a fair point, and there's no reason why we can't look at it.
And thank you, Amir, and thank you, Christine. By the way,
I just want to wrap this up, because I do feel like that was an important discussion, and I'm pleased to see some of the steps that have been taken. But I do think we are, in fact, beyond the scope of the revocable consent at this point.
Okay.
So do we need to vote?
yes, we need to vote. So I would do a recap for you if you want. I would say we are approving it. We would like them to think even further about bioswale, but I think what's happening on the sidewalk is pretty good. And we would like them to think about later on about the different sloping and the different, materials for the street in order to order to order pooling. But this would be comments, not, we would be approving.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like this is among the best pedestrian scapes we've seen, and we're in fact asking them to go further. But that's our MO. It's Community Board 4. So yeah, I think the
Bill, I would add one more item. I would really like them to sort of go back and take a look at reducing the number of bollards and thinking about streetscape strategy along with bioswales, because I think we are in the,
your earlier comment is noted and it'll be incorporated into the comments.
No, I didn't hear it in the recap, which is why I'm it.
Well, I think we're going to ask them, we're going to say we would have liked to see it, but, I think we are probably a little bit down the path as far as doing the design.
Yeah, and I tend to sort of disagree. I'll tell you why. We are in the third decade of 21st century. If we don't do it now, when are we planning to do it?
Okay. Well, so Dale, you need to figure which resolution you want to put on the table.
I would say the resolution is to approve the revocable consent with comments regarding any strategies, to examine any strategies possible to reduce the number of bollards or to incorporate them into streetscape elements, to bury them in planters. I don't know if that's actually practical. And also to assure that the design is to the best degree possible resistant to flash flooding and has mitigation strategies for flooding and pooling. Even if that's not really bollard talk, but just to note that we appreciate the steps that have been, the measures that have been taken, and we'd like to assure that this property is, has the best mitigation possible for the streets, for the enjoyment of the pedestrians.
I'm happy to vote yes for that resolution, provided I hear from them that they will actually commit to taking a serious look at this recommendation.
I think we've gotten that, Darren.
Okay, do we have a motion? Somebody is voting for that? Yeah.
Make a motion that we move forward with all the addendas that we have placed forward.
Okay. You have two, Dale. You have two. You have a motion and do
we have a
I second it.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
All right. So are we voting?
Yeah.
Janine, will you capture the votes? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any present not eligible?
Okay.
Thank you so much,
I
gentlemen.
didn't get Alice's vote. Alice, did you vote?
Yes, I voted yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
In good faith, I'm just going to sort of re-emphasize, please take a look at it. It's really important. You do something.
Well, thanks.
I think they got it. I think they got it.
Thanks, sir. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Christine.
Okay, we're moving on.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 3. Thank you. Bus stop application for taxi tours on 12th Avenue at 40th Street.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Charles Nolen. I'm the general manager for Big Bus Tours. I forwarded the presentation to Janine. Thank you very much for that. It's the first time I'm presenting to this committee, so I really apologize if I don't have the right format, but surely if you have any question, I have a very brief presentation and I will try to answer everything right after. So again, thank you very much for allowing me to present this project. and for your time, for your consideration and review of this stop application. Big Bus Tours is the largest operator of double-decker open-top sightseeing in the world, operating over 600 vehicles before COVID. We started our operation in New York in 2014 with the acquisition of a company called Taxi Tours, which was operating under Big Taxi Tours, DBA. We follow that we acquired Skyline Tours in 2015. We then acquired Open Loop Sightseeing in 2017. Next slide, please, sorry. Janine, sorry, next slide.
Janine, can you hear us?
It's okay. I'm gonna try to do it.
Hold on 1 second. Janine?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you move to the next slide? Uh-oh, okay.
So, as I was saying, we are the result of consolidation from, back in 2014, there were 6 operators of double-decker sightseeing. Currently, we are down to 2. And my company, as I explained, just consolidated 3 of them. And then throughout COVID, we actually made a short-term agreement with City Sightseeing, Grey Line, for about 12 months renewable, where we are actually operating together and carrying our passenger together as a result of COVID in our industry.
Uh-oh. We have just, hold on 1 second, obviously.
It's okay, I can keep on talking about general things.
Okay.
And so we have a fleet of about 60 vehicles, but currently, since we have restarted in July 20, we have been able to only use 10 based on the demand that we have seen in the streets of New York. Again, in March 2020, I had 400 employees in my team, currently only 47. So we are roughly operating a tenth of what we were in winter, as of March 2020. We are very hopeful that the market will return soon, especially with Broadway returning and now Europeans, travelers allowed to cross the border again. But again, those last few months have been very difficult, and 2022 will not be as strong or as busy as what we were expecting in 2019. I'm sorry, it's very difficult without the PowerPoint, but our operation is often perceived in a way that is unfair to our team and vehicles. Basically, we are under the scrutiny of DOT. We have 2 semi-annual inspection per vehicle. We are also regulated by DCA. We have 3 inspections per year per vehicle. DEP, 1 inspection per year per vehicle. And of course, we are under the 19A program for everything that's related to our driver hiring, training, and maintaining their files. Internally, we have added a few layers of safety. We use a system called Green Road, which is an insurance monitoring of all our internal cameras, live 24/7, along with a alert system that will trigger email or phone calls to my management team in case of a bus speeding, a fast turn or a braking event, anything that's outside of the regular perimeter that we have set up. Finally, we are a unionized company. We are TW Local 100, which again add a layer of safety and commitment commitment to safety within our driver lane. The stop that we are currently applying for is within the current. It's currently within the current route, so it's not triggering any changes or any turn change or speed change or schedule change to my current operation. This proposed there you go. This proposed stop is on 12th Avenue between 40th and 41st. It's a stop shared by the M12 MTA. So we have passed this one. If you want to go to the next one, right, that will be good. So our stop proposal will fit in the red loop right by what is currently stop number 10 for Circle Line sighting. Circle Line is one of our boat partners, so this stop will be primarily used by the customer that we share in common, who will want to use Circle Line as a boat provider around the Statue of Liberty. The frequency is an average of 20 minutes. Again, it's based on our current data. So yeah, if you want to go back just one slide, that was just to give you the visual of what I was trying to explain. So basically, we have been in this market since 2014, as I said. One aspect I forgot to mention, we are a well-recognized product in the local market. We have won the Concierge Choice Award 3 times in 6 years, which a Concierge Choice Award is the association of concierges in New York City across all main biggest properties. So next slide.
Next, I guess, right? Or,
yes.
Or is it the end of your?
Yes, but I'm sorry. It was a bit.
Are you done or not?
Yes, I'm done.
Right. So I have a bunch of questions, if you don't mind, Dale.
Yes, go right ahead, Christine.
Okay. So the first question I have is on your application, the application of CB4. Bus stop in length should say more than one, or I can't read what you wrote there.
Yes, the question says bus stop length in number of buses. So I've put superior to 1.
Well, what is superior to 1? It's 2, it's 5, it's what?
The bus stop length in number of buses. To my visual appreciation, it looks like 60 feet. From the pole to the end of the
it's
curve.
1 foot. It's one bus, right?
No, my vehicles are 40 feet. So,
but the question is that how many buses are you going to have stopping at that stop at the same time?
Per DOT, it's 1 at any given time.
It's 1. Okay. No, it's not per DOT. I'm asking your operation.
Oh, I am absolutely against bus bunching.
I'm not asking that. Just tell me the number. So you're going to have 1 at the stop at a given time?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And the other question is, you said you were going to be coming from Queens. Your layover is in Queens. When you come from Queens, what's the path you are taking to get to this stop?
My depot is in Review Avenue in Long Island City. I take the Queensboro Bridge.
And?
But then my buses go to stop number 1, which is in Times Square, and we'll go.
Where is it in Times Square?
48 and 7.
Okay. And then what happens?
But then the bus departs on a fixed route that is approved by DOT and stop at every ICBPS stop.
I'm asking, what is the route?
But the route, so we go down we go on 7th Avenue, we make a left on 42nd Street, we make a right on 5th Avenue.
You mean a right on 42nd Street, right?
No, a left on 42nd Street.
You're going down 7th Avenue?
Yes.
Oh, so you make a left on 42nd Street. Okay.
Correct. Then a right on 5th, all the way down to City Hall. Then we merge on Broadway by the Charging Bull, Battery Park, West Side Highway, 42nd Street, 8th Avenue, and right on 50th, then a right on 7th Avenue again.
But so it never goes on 12th Avenue. So why do you need to stop on 12th?
It absolutely does. So right after the Battery Park stop, we take the West Side Highway all the way up to Circle Line on 42nd.
Okay, and then you go to 42nd, then you turn on 42nd?
Correct.
And then you go to 8th Avenue?
Correct.
Is there a stop there?
My next stop is 8 and 46.
Okay. All right, so that was clarification. Thank you for that. And XP, etc. I had one more question that I didn't understand. Yeah. So there's not going to be anybody to manage people here. So my question is, what is the, how, I don't have the right word, the air quality and the idling, how do you manage that?
At this particular stop or my company in general?
On general, and how it applies to this stop.
Well, we are not expecting any idling at these stops. At this particular stop, it's clearly en route. We are obliged to just stop and go. The idling over 3 minutes is really more a concern at my starting point in Times Square. And we have assessed that already.
So, because right now you have four summons, which are for idling, which are unpaid, by the way.
Yes, they're all in dispute.
Okay, that is a big concern to us. And then the second thing is that you want to share the stop with the MTA. Is there any chance that we can create a stop further up?
Yes, absolutely. I will fully support this proposal if you want, because the pole is at the beginning of the block, right, and the entire block is empty. There is no fire hydrant either.
Right. So we don't want to have, the MTA trying to go around you.
And there are no stores or storefront of anything on this particular block.
All right. So these were my questions. Thank you.
Do we have questions from the committee? I see Blake.
Blake.
Yes, Blake.
Quick question. I think we're all hoping as well as you are that tourism rebounds. And I was wondering if you could talk about how you plan to hire locally, in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood.
I missed the first part of the question. I apologize.
Yeah, I think we're all hoping that tourism rebounds and that, you're able to bring on more employees. So wondering if you can talk about how you plan to hire locally, within the neighborhood.
Right. I have to be honest with you. Drivers currently is probably one of the most wanted jobs in the country. It's been extremely difficult to hire driver, and there is very few applicants in Manhattan for this position. So currently, we do not have any plan to hire more within the next 6 months. The slow season is in front of us. When we advertise our positions, we use all most famous websites and channels. But I have to say, I have never seen Manhattan as a pool of available driver applicants.
So what about, would you be amenable to post your future positions on the community board website?
Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tina.
Tina.
Sorry. Hi. I might have I'm confused. I believe you said you didn't plan on hiring any people for this particular spot because there's no need. But on one of the sheets, you indicate, I thought, being at the spot between 8:10 and 19:10. Unless I'm misreading it. I thought this was just focused on this spot, the times. So I'm curious, because you also say somewhere in the application that you will have somebody there during peak hours, I think you said. Am I misreading something? Because there must be peak hours sometime between
Yes.
10. Sorry.
So typically my operation does not have an employee at each stop. You need to compare us with the MTA service for tourism. People buy a ticket with us at M&M in Times Square at stop number 1. Then they board the loop. They stay on the bus for the full loop, or they decide to hop on or off and to start exploring by themselves. The stops where I have a presence there with an employee of mine, either at Statue of Liberty to facilitate the boat boarding, or Circle Line to facilitate the boat boarding again, or Empire State Building, where it's really becoming a significant amount of people. I realistically do not anticipate to have any kind of significant volume at this stop between now and probably July 22. So I will, of course, be on the ground and monitor the need for anyone on day one. But realistically, I believe that it will not be a very busy stop in terms of hopage before next summer.
So you're saying that there's absolutely no peak hours between 8 a.m. in the morning and until you finish at 19:10.
There is, so my peak hours currently are around 10 a.m. So it's the opposite peak hours of what Manhattan workers do. The TLC peak hours are between 7 and 10. My peak hours start at 10. And then TLC picked up again between 4 and 7. That's when I finish my service. So I have the opposite peak hours of what TLC has.
Thank you.
David Warren. David, did you have a question?
Yes, good evening. Two questions. One is I'd like to know what type of safety precautions your drivers take to cyclists and pedestrians. And the second thing is, I know this is not your company, but there was a previous tour guide company which had horrible environmental problems with their buses. How are your buses fueled, and what is the environmental impact on the city?
So the city has established a rule. It's called DEP Local Law 41 for all sightseeing double-decker buses. No double-decker currently in the street from my operation or from my competitors are operating without that sticker. I will speak on behalf of the entire industry here. We are all in compliance with local law 41. Now, we also believe that New York is a little bit behind in the electrification of some of those vehicles, including its own, including mine. So we believe that a new law is coming soon, and we welcome that. We are definitely oriented toward making our vehicles cleaner, like currently you will see in Big Bus Paris or in Big Bus London, where the fleet replacement started already. And New York is next one on the line. So definitely that's something that we are extremely cautious about. And we know that our vehicle could be a lot more cleaner. And we are aiming at a fleet replacement within the next 5 years. Now, for the first question, the first part of your question, Vision Zero was really part of our training since day one. we cannot prevent something bad from happening. We can just speak about it on a daily basis and try to make sure that everybody is aware of what we are talking about. I would be very happy to share with Christine some of our insurance system. Again, the live triggering of events when a driver brakes too hard or turns too fast or is above the speed limit. We also have geofencing where we prevent our driver to go. So all of those setup are monitored 24/7 by our insurance. And the minute something is outside of the perimeter, we are being called, which again allow us to call the driver and to locate the driver right away. Yeah, pedestrian and cyclists are absolutely part of our training, and this is absolutely one of our main concerns.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from the committee? I saw some questions in the chat. Some of them, it seems like you've addressed them in terms of speeding. And there is one question. Christine and I were recently introduced to a company, a bus company, an applicant for an intercity bus that had anti-idling technology installed in their buses, which it's similar to what you're doing with your monitoring, essentially prevents the drivers from idling in excess of the limit. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, I'm very, very, very familiar with those. I already have a technology that I will not call anti-idling because there is no such thing. This is just marketing. I have a shutter. I have retrofitted a shutter following an issue that we had with the idling tickets a couple of years ago. So currently the buses are shutting down by themselves within 3 minutes.
Oh, I see. So that in effect is your anti-idling technology.
There is no anti-idling.
Well, I mean, it's just a phrase. Okay. We don't need to get into the semantics of it. Okay. Do we have any other questions from the public?
Yeah.
Janine will recognize members of the public.
Yeah, so Eric had his hand up.
Hi, I just wanted to follow up on Christine's point about the past idling behavior by Taxi Tours Inc., which I'm rather familiar with. Taxi Tours has many dozens of adjudicated violations. The 4 that Christine was referencing, and I can get you those numbers if that's helpful, or Christine has them. It's a misrepresentation or a misunderstanding to say that they are in dispute. They are not in dispute. Taxi Tours is either defaulted by failing to show up at the hearing or been found in violation on those 4 tickets. They're quite old, and Taxi Tours has still not even paid its minimum reparations for the damage it's done. My understanding, again, is that the city is not supposed to be, they haven't been following this, but the city is not supposed to be granting permits to organizations that do not pay their oath adjudicated violations, which these 4 are. So I would suggest that before any letter approving this by CB4 be issued, that it ensure that those 4 tickets are paid. This is, I know Taxi Tours has already paid a lot of them, but these 4 are not in dispute. They're done.
Hi, Eric. It's great to be able to put a face on summons. Good to finally see you.
We've met before, actually.
Oh, really? I don't remember that. Sorry. No, but just to confirm that your information are wrong. Those 4 tickets are absolutely not a problem currently. And here is my last communication with the city, which I don't even need to share with you really. But just to clarify, your information are not accurate.
Okay, so what we'll do, Eric, we don't have any way of verifying. So what we'll do is we'll approve subject to the.
Well, you can just type into the ECB ticket finder the four ticket numbers I gave you.
Eric, we are not going to type into that. We are just going to say to DOT that we don't want that to be approved unless all these tickets have been paid. And then that's up to DOT to do it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more?
Anybody else?
There are a couple of questions in Q&A.
I believe those have been addressed. This, the applicant referenced speed monitoring and
yeah.
And the specific limit would be the speed limit, I assume. Is that correct, sir? 25 miles an hour. What speed triggers your monitoring system?
So yes, I mean, there is the city limit, but then there is the speed that we want for our product. It would be impossible to enjoy the product at 25. So we train all our drivers to drive between 5 and 15, but really closer to 5 than 15.
But Charles, the question was whether your system is triggering, at what point the system is triggering.
It's triggered by city law. All streets have their own speed limit that are already loaded in the GPS.
So the number
it's triggered
is
by the city law.
Is it 25?
Correct.
Okay, that was the question. All right. All right. Dale, you want me to kind of summarize?
Please.
So I'm hearing that, I mean, the place for the stop is okay, except I would rather, I don't want to share, we wouldn't want to share with MTA, we want to create a stop further up on closer to 41st Street. So there is no impact on the MTA buses. And this is a policy we have used in the past. And then we certainly don't want any permit to be given until all the oath summons, which are active, are paid. And I think that's it.
So are we taking a vote on this resolution or yeah. So all those in favor of the resolution as outlined by Christine?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we have any opposed or present not eligible? Okay. I hope that's the end of that vote. I believe it is. All right, great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next agenda item. I'm rushing back to my computer so I can see what it is. Okay.
Disability Pride.
Disability Pride. Who do we have? Who do we have presenting on this topic, Disability Pride?
Michael is there.
Hello, Michael.
Hello, nice to meet you. I mean, I guess I met you last time.
Yes.
And thanks for having me back.
Sure.
I'm certainly not at the point where I'm actually presenting like these gentlemen and ladies presented, but I'm here to, I guess, just see if I'm even in the appropriate place. But my thought is, my whole mission is to help the disability community, and I'm the president of Disability Pride NYC, and I founded the Disability Pride Parade in New York City. And I have a disabled daughter. And so the last time I was here, I had spoken briefly about the horrible curb cuts in Hell's Kitchen and actually the entire city. So since then, I had this idea, and this may not be the appropriate forum for this, but I'm going to tell it to you, and then you could say either go away and don't ever come back, or tell me how to get this going. Maybe it is the right place. But my idea is this. What I was told last time was that, you know, the thing to do would be to take pictures of the bad curb cuts and then send them to some appropriate place where maybe a city agency or service would get out there and fix them. But that is not even slightly a reality. I mean, no one who's pushing their daughter down the street is going to stop and take pictures and then try and find the place to send the pictures, and then, you know, where God knows where that would be. And it just seemed like a big dead end. So here's my thought, is to have to hire people from the community, the disability community, paid for by the city, to go out and be a force to take these pictures, and to have a designated place, maybe the mayor's office for people with disabilities, MOPD, send these all of this information and get it to the proper city agency that would then send out a workforce that could also be hired from the city. So this is an employment opportunity as well, that would go out and fix these horrible curb cuts. And that was my idea of how to solve the problem of the disabled individual having to take these pictures and find out where to send the pictures, and then not knowing what happens to the pictures after they, you know, there's all of this dead end that's built into that kind of thinking. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you get rid of the dead end and actually make something happen for once, because this is an ongoing problem. And of course, it's a violation of the ADA. So I'm surprised there aren't lawsuits cooking right now. But so first of all, is this the correct place to present this kind of an idea? And is anyone here knowledgeable about how to make these points connect?
Well, let me take that for 1 second. My name is Christine Berthe, and I've been working on pedestrian and ADA issue for a long time. So first of all, there was a massive lawsuit that has just been settled with the city concerning all of the curb cuts.
Oh yeah.
And there is an organization that was leading the charge, and the city is now compelled of fixing all the curb cuts.
Okay, that's great.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's a fact. And excellent. Now DOT has to make a priority list of what to do. A few years back, we made an effort locally to make a list of all the curb cut that we felt were in trouble, troublesome, and we sent them to the city, to DOT. And, the only way to get things done is, again, to complain and make a list of things. So unfortunately, the best way to do what you are talking about is still to have people voluntarily. Nobody's going to pay anybody to do that. So
well, that's the problem. There you go. Because
but you can just forget about it for 1 second. You wanted to ask a question. I'm giving you the answer that I know. And so they have already made an inventory for the lawsuit of all the curb cuts which are not good. So the inventory has been done.
By who?
By the city.
The city did the inventory? How would they, are they out checking every curb cut? Because that would be a massive undertaking. I mean, I would like to know more about that. You don't have to tell me now, but that seems like almost an impossibility, but it's great. That's great. I hope it's true. Okay. Yeah.
And now if we want to bring our curb cuts to the top, to the top of the priority, the best way is for you, since you have an organization who is interested in that issue, is to gather a few people, which would be what the community board would do, and gather a few people and say, okay, you walk up this avenue and you go take picture for this avenue. And then you send us the information. And then once we have the information about the one that you have found, which were really not good, then we would send a letter.
Okay, that's doable, I guess, but that's very small scale, and not at all. First of all, my organization doesn't do that. We create the parade, we put on the parade. That's what we do. That's our mission. It's a nonprofit. That's all we do. So I wouldn't have them out doing that. So we're back to me doing it. So that's kind of.
I mean, I think if you are putting the parade together, there must be a number of people which are interested enough that they can step up and do a run up an avenue. I mean, it's not the end of the world, you know. It's really going up an avenue and taking picture when it's necessary. It's not like a 5 years exercise, right?
Oh, well, I mean, you're talking about people who I don't have that authority over, and there aren't that many. You know how many of us there are? There's about 7 or 8 of us that do the whole parade. So
yeah, and some of it, we have nonprofit in this community board where people are 7 and 8, and they take the 7 and 8 and say, okay, everybody does a little bit of this.
Of course,
Blake and I have done that.
That's what we do too. We do too. But I guess my disappointment here is in what you're saying, because that's not going to really do the job. But I'd like to know more about what you're talking about. How can I find out more about the outcome of this lawsuit? And
why don't you give your information, your email to Janine, and then we'll send you the information we have.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because my thought was that, and this is the point of this community being, you know, it's even underrepresented in this community board. I guess anybody can come to this thing, and I'm going to try and get some disabled people on this board so there's more interest and focus on these issues.
That would be great. We used to have a member who was Martin Treat, who was handicapped, I mean, who had a disability. And then he left this year because, because he was a little bit too much for him, and he had other issues as far as expression, but we have had a lot of attention to that issue. Great.
That's great. Well, I thank you for anything that you do. But my concern is more about the smallness of the effort to get those curb cuts, because it's an immense amount of curbs, that almost every single one.
But what I'm telling you, Michael, is that the lawsuit took care of the immense job.
It did? Okay.
So
great.
What we need to do now is take care of our backyard. And that's our job in this community, is to try to take care of our backyard.
Right. Okay. So there's no way to create there's no way to get into the city and try and create an employment opportunity. I guess what I was trying to do was parlay this into an employment opportunity for disabled people to go out and have not only help fix their community, but actually get some employment and get some money flowing in their pockets as well from the city, who has been turning their back on this community, forever. So even though the lawsuit is great, I was hoping that you got mine. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Christine, if I could jump in, we could suggest to the DOT that in their surveying, in their process in addressing the issues raised by the lawsuit, they employ members of the disabled community.
That'd be great. Yeah.
To the degree possible, in order to have, a real informed, take on the issues.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. That works.
Yeah, so that's a different angle. I think that would be good. No, I think it's a different angle. If we are looking for creating job, it's a different purpose than, doing
I thought that's what I was trying to say. I guess I didn't put it clearly when I was.
Right, I wasn't clear about that. Okay. But then we need to find, we need to have a list of all the organization and the point person to put them in that letter, right? Or we can make a very generic letter.
What is that? I'm sorry, I'm missing.
No, I'm just thinking about whether we need a lot of details, or we can just go ahead and send a generic statement.
I don't know. If you need information from me, I'm all ears, and I'll do whatever I can.
Okay.
Yeah, we know all the organizations. They all come to the parade, and we could certainly supply you with a list.
Good.
So that's good.
Aaron.
Yes, I think Dale actually already took care of what I was going to suggest, and thanks, Dale. I think that's a great idea, and I think Michael, if you can put something together and provide Christine and Dale to this committee, then we can actually use that towards drafting a letter to that effect, which takes care of two issues. One is the equity issue for physically disabled. That's the main issue. And the second one is, how does that actually become an opportunity for the disabled to actually monetize, or not monetize, but, sort of in terms of job creation. I think that's a great thought to sort of, this committee can work on that. This committee can't go out there and start documenting which curb cuts are good or not good, but this we can do. That's number one. Number two, question for Christine. Christine, how do we get access to that information, the inventory that you just mentioned, that the DOT has put together? Do we have access to that information?
I have not looked for it specifically, but I know that the people who have done the settlement, and we know that there have been some sort of, they have an exact number of how many curb cuts are going to be fixed. So I presume either they have said, okay, every corner in the world, or they have made an inventory, one or the other, right? But I don't have that information specifically.
So maybe we can request that information for our district in that letter as well.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah, that might help us narrow it down as to how many, what percentage we have, and maybe we find a way of documenting them further.
So, okay. So, all right. So that would be a letter where we say, we want to request to inform the information. We want to encourage that people with disability would be hired to continue the inventory of etc. Right, and that's it. These are the two asks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be excellent. Okay. So, what do you need from me?
Well, it would be good to have a letter from you to the community board with a description of your organization and some of those ideas, and then we could make a cover page and say, okay, we support that, please do blah blah blah.
Yes, I think that's the best way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to
all right.
Sorry.
Michael, I would actually address the concerns as well, not only just the description of what you do, but also the sort of, why do you feel this need to be addressed?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that has to be in there. Sure. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
So Dale, we have a resolution on that or what? Yeah.
I would say that the resolution was summarized. We're going to, based on anticipating Michael's letter describing his interests, his organization's interests, and continuing to address the needs to repair the pedestrian ramps all over the city and all over our district specifically. We want to make sure that folks from the disability community are engaged and even employed in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Second that.
Okay. We have a motion. That's the motion. We have it's seconded. So all those in favor? Sorry, lag.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any present not eligible?
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your activism, Michael. It's appreciated. And Christine is right. We had a very active voice for the disability community in Martin Treat. He unfortunately left. He's a scooter user. So he really brought that perspective to every single issue. And we do take pains in this committee to carry his priorities through on every issue. But it's good of you to bring them up again. To bring your perspective as well. All right, we are moving on to West 21st Street between 9th and 10th, the open street program. This committee received both a request to suspend or terminate the open street program on West 21st Street from, I believe it's the Block Association or residents. We also received a flurry of letters in support of the program. So is there somebody from the, is there somebody who will be speaking on the need to close it, or are we taking this as a community discussion?
Laura reached out about it. She's transferring over.
Okay, great, Laura.
Sandy is actually more of an expert. I'm not speaking. I'm the president of the Block Association. Sandy is the vice president. And
Okay.
she's been actually dealing with this issue longer than I have. So I'll let her.
Okay, and is Sandy here?
Yes, she is.
Okay, can you bring her over, Janine?
She is right there.
She's here.
Oh, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I am the one who's speaking primarily, I guess, both as a resident of 21st Street and as vice president of the 400 West Block Association. When the Open Street program began at the beginning of the pandemic, it was a great idea. The parks were closed, many people had fled the city, and traffic was minimal. For everyone who was toughing it out in NYC, finding any open space was terrific. It made life in isolation more bearable. However, now the parks are open and we are lucky to have Clement Moore Park one short block away, as well as a wonderful Hudson River Park just a few blocks away. These are much more hospitable places for children to play and adults to gather. In fact, people do not use 21st Street between 9th and 10th as a gathering spot or a place to play. You never see children playing in the street, and very rarely do you see people gathering or even walking in the middle of the street. Traffic has increased substantially again, and drivers are constantly moving the barriers to go down the street, often looking for parking spaces, making deliveries, and dropping off residents. In fact, several years ago, through your committee, actually, I believe, at the request of the small businesses in the area, 5 or 6 metered parking spaces were set aside for short-term parking in order to encourage people to patronize the shops in the neighborhood. So people are utilizing those spots, which means that all day various cars are moving in and out of the spots, which means people are constantly moving the barriers. The barriers are constantly breaking and falling over. One is currently lying on the sidewalk, potentially creating a tripping hazard. They are very heavy and awkward to move, especially for many senior citizens and definitely for anybody with mobility issues. Maybe this is a good topic to come after Michael's discussion about disabilities. I personally find them very difficult to move. As my house is on the corner, we constantly hear the dragging of the heavy metal barriers. This is a beautiful historic district, and these metal barriers are an eyesore. Everybody, has talked about trying to beautify and make life easier and more accessible. These barriers make the area much uglier and less accessible to many people. This stretch of the street has a bike lane, and in fact, the bicycles trying to enter often have to go on the sidewalk or wind their way through the barriers to reach it. I appreciate that everybody wants this to be a residential street. Obviously, I do as well. And we don't want to become a thoroughfare for trucks. However, my understanding is that this has already been allocated as a no-through street for trucks, and there are signs already indicating that. I've often seen ambulances and fire and police vehicles having to stop to open the barriers in order to respond to an emergency. If you have ever had the misfortune to be waiting for an ambulance because either you or a loved one are in distress, you understand how every lost minute seems like an eternity. I do know that there are other people in the neighborhood who disagree with my position on this, but I do not see how the program as it now exists benefits the block or the neighborhood. And I'm advocating that that 21st Street between 9th and 10th no longer be considered a part of the Open Street program.
Thank you.
think we also have someone else from the Block Association who would like to speak specifically about all of the traffic issues on other blocks that have been caused by this. Oh, and there she is. It's Jean Blair. She's part of the executive committee of the Block Association.
Hello, Jean.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Jean Blair. I'm the co-vice president of the Block Association. And from what I gather, talking to people on 21st Street, the main thing that people seem to want is they want their block to be quiet. And of course, everybody wants their block to be quiet. I live on 22nd. I want my block to be quiet. But it's not always possible to be completely blocked off, and especially when the street is not being used. Meanwhile, while the street is blocked, all the traffic from 9th to 10th is forced to go down to 19th Street. 19th Street is now jammed. It's got lots of trucks. It's got building going on with cranes, and it's blocked some of the times when I'm down there. And it doesn't seem fair to me to have all of that traffic pushed onto another street when 21st Street is not really being used as an open street. It's not used for gatherings. So I think the traffic is a very important thing to consider, especially, I don't know if anyone from 19th Street, anyone is representing them here, but I know from talking to people down there, especially the people in the projects, that they are not thrilled with the thicker traffic there because of the blockage of 21st Street.
Thank you. Do we have any, is anyone else speaking on this issue?
I can just add, I'm the president of the Block Associations, that's 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. I'll just add that I echo everything that Jean and Sandy have already said, but I also want to mention that as a dog owner, I am on 21st Street at least 4 times a day with my little doggie. And I can say 100% that no one is in the streets. There's one side of 21st Street between 9th and 10th is a seminary. So there's almost never any foot traffic as it is on the sidewalk, let alone in the street. So I think it just doesn't make sense to me that such a quiet block with almost no foot traffic already should be closed.
And may I ask, is your block association the local partner for this open street?
We don't know that there is a local partner. Certainly was not our block association, as far as I know, and I've been on the block association since it started.
Christine, wouldn't somebody have had to enroll as a local partner? Are you on mute, Christine?
Yeah, I raised that issue to Gail Brewer's office and say, well, who is the local partner? And I didn't have, there doesn't seem, I don't know whether NYPD listed that or somebody else. It's not clear. Let me check, double check.
Yeah, because normally, on other blocks, it's often the block association itself that is the partner and oversees it, and it doesn't seem to be the case in this instance.
It's definitely not the case in this instance. We've also talked to the police in the neighborhood as well, and at least off the record, they tell us that that they're certainly not in favor of this particular block being on the open street program.
Well, the NYPD isn't in favor of open streets program.
I just said for whatever.
Yeah.
Realize that.
Yeah. They want control of the streets. not for the people.
But one of my
But I-
problems is that I don't understand what benefit it's giving to anybody other than maybe there is less traffic, but nobody's using the street. And
Well,
in-
I mean, I have to
and in
say,
fact,
I've heard
it's a
from,
problem.
I have to say, I've heard from yourself and your colleagues, but there's plenty of testimony of people who in the neighborhood who actively use the street, if not to gather, then just to traverse. So we do have testimony to the contrary. So I recognize that it's your block. You all live on that block. So, and we do like to have a local partner in place that is obviously in favor and participating in the program. So, and we don't seem to have that here, which is odd.
Right. Yeah, I don't see, I mean, the list that they post, DOT posts, doesn't have a specific partner. It says Chelsea, but it's not, more specific.
Chelsea? Yeah, that's not going to be.
That doesn't do it.
When we were presented with the idea of the open street, the question was put, who will monitor the barriers? And we saw that as a problem because people were not coming forth. And as it is in practice, the barriers are just dragged back and forth by whoever wants to turn to come down the street, and no one seems to be in charge. It just seems to be kind of a messy situation.
Yeah, it seems like there's objections to the barriers themselves and how they are operated or how they're not operated. And I think that's true. That, I mean, I think with a better system, the Open Streets program would be more successful. One that didn't involve just like, the good. I mean, I've personally moved those barriers back and forth when cars went through and, saved the driver the trouble of getting out of the car and putting the barriers back behind him or her. But that's not a sustainable system in the long term.
So who is Paul Crickler? Paul has his hand up.
Hello, I'm a member of the public. I live in Manhattan. I'd like to speak in support of this open street and also point out there's a lady, I think, on this call, I can't see the names, who actually does the barriers. She's been running this open street. I think you should give her a chance to talk. Her name is Melody Bryan.
Paul, who is that?
Her name is Melody Bryan.
Oh, sure, Melody. Melody is a friend of the committee. She's welcome to speak.
Fantastic. I'll speak when you want me to, or let Melody go first. I think she should go first.
Okay, well, let's do the committee first. I'm sorry, I was not sure.
Yeah, do we have any comments from the committee members or questions?
Yeah, two hands are up.
Yeah, Viren and David.
Okay. Viren and then David.
Just very quickly, I mean, I love the idea of open streets. I love the idea of open city and open plans, across 5 boroughs. But there's also a question of, how do we manage to do that in an equitable manner? And if there is kind of from within the block, there is a kind of concern about it being underutilized beyond being blocked, and it remains an open space, but nobody uses it. I think that's a big. Sorry, there's static here. Hello? Somebody has to mute themselves. Okay, so I think there's a broader question here, and I don't know if this becomes an example for it, but the broader question is, how do we sort of deal with open streets program, which we all love? I mean, I don't live on a block which is open block, but I do have a couple of blocks north of me, 22nd Street between 7th and 8th. And I do see it being occasionally used, but you're right, I'm not heavily used like you would expect it to be used during the summer. So yeah, there are these very legitimate concerns. And the broader question, how do we make it equitable? How do we make it make sense for district? I mean, that is the larger question in my mind. And I don't know if this community board or this committee becomes a sort of judge and jury to decide which block gets it and which block doesn't get it. So I don't know what the process would be. So I think we should be thinking about making some proposals or putting together some ideas as to how does the district look at open streets program and how do we sort of engage the community so that it becomes kind of an acceptable plan, so to speak, moving forward, because I think it's a great plan. It's just, we have to find a way of making it work for everybody.
I'm sorry, I'm on mute. I think good barriers would go a long way. David.
Yes. First of all, I rode the block today to see what was going on. Also, in the Q&A, there's lists, if you scroll down, of the applicants and the people who applied for the open streets.
Yeah, we're going to hear from them next, David.
No, I'm talking about, but it's listing them. It's other people. But my questions are to the people from the Block Association. You mentioned 19th Street. Is that a listed thoroughfare? Because if it's not a listed thoroughfare, then the trucks aren't even supposed to go there. And what the potential will happen is that the trucks will go to your block. It'll be like a truck route onto the West Side Highway. Also, what shops are on 21st Street? Because I didn't see any shops on 23rd Street when they were referring to the needed parking. And the other thing is, if you want us to revoke this open street application, where in the vicinity would you like to place an open street? And the other thing, and this is just my observation, for the barriers, we need to get like a swing gate rather than the barriers throughout the whole system or something, because the barriers are ineffective citywide, not just on 21st Street. And I think a lot of the noise would be mitigated for 21st Street if it was just a swing gate that would swing open and close. So,
yeah, doesn't one of the streets nearby have a swing, like, the FIT block has one of those gates.
Right. But my questions to the Block Association, because they're so involved in this, is what is their, if they don't want this, aren't they afraid that their block might become a thoroughfare if this is revoked? And, unfortunately, the truck routes are not being enforced. The people are making streets into truck routes, and that could happen to your street. I'm not saying that it will, but there's the potential. And what street would you recommend? And thank you for your time.
Thanks. We'll circle back to the presenters, but we'll go to Melody.
Dale, can I make a point first before you go outside the committee?
Sure.
Okay, the two things are here, right? I mean, one of the other sort of suggestions that I wanted to make is that it is a design problem. So let's say we accept that the street is going to remain an open street. How do we design it such that we don't need the barriers, being moved around, every few minutes? How does DOT take this up in a slightly different way, like similar to Broadway now? So Fulton Street in Brooklyn as well as downtown Manhattan, they have actually much more of shared streets. We had to find a design solution for it. Signage, changing the materials, allowing the sort of some traffic to go through. So that's one suggestion. Second one is, let's think about not simply spatial planning, but temporal planning. So in other words, maybe there are certain times when the street is totally closed off to traffic, and there might be times when you open them up. So I think there has to be, we have to find a way of solving the problem while meeting all the needs of the community. And I think it's possible. It is a design problem, in my opinion. And not only in terms of spatial planning, but also time zoned planning as well.
Viren, let's everybody use the same words, which is it's open when there is no traffic and it's closed when there is traffic. Okay, so Melody now.
Hello?
Where is Dale?
I think he said he had to leave.
No, he's still here.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna just finish up this this agenda item. Melody.
Hi. I thank the committee for letting me speak. I'm a 40-year resident of Chelsea. I live 2 blocks away from this open street. I ride my bike and walk in this neighborhood all the time. Everyone who lives in Chelsea loves the Seminary block, and since it's been an open street, it's only become lovelier. I truly can't understand why anyone would think through traffic of cars and trucks from 9th Avenue would make 21st Street a better place. 9th Avenue is a major arterial. It's a truck route. We all know that truck drivers wanting to get to 10th Avenue will take whatever side street they can unless they're prevented from it. The barricades on West 21st serve that purpose, and they keep the street quieter, less polluted, and safer for pedestrians. But for cyclists, this is particularly important because there's a painted lane on that block. This lane provides major access for cyclists on their way to the Hudson River Greenway. Before through traffic was discouraged there, I had more than a few close calls, and I don't ride fast, with truck and SUV side mirrors as they sped through on the way to 10th Avenue. I've spoken to others with the same terrifying experience. Paint is not protection. With open street barricades closing off through traffic, however, this lane becomes protected. Furthermore, to the east is a school block with traffic closed off from 8 to 4 p.m. This means both pedestrians and cyclists are protected from this speeding for 2 crosstown blocks. So I think this corridor of safety should be allowed to remain. The fact that New York City now has 140,000 more vehicles than before the pandemic should concern all of us. For the sake of safety, noise, lower pollution, climate change, and to honor the beauty of this historic block in Chelsea, I strongly urge the committee not only to keep West 22nd an open street, but to make it permanent. Thank you.
Mel, do you have a question? You were mentioning that there is a person who is in charge of.
Yes, there is.
Yes, and that person is on the call.
I believe he's on the call.
Who's that?
The city actually dropped. You know, de Blasio just declared 100 open streets, and he didn't ask everybody. And this was declared an open street. And this guy, whose name is Jim Saylor, with volunteers, looked up what it was and have kept it going for almost 2 years now. I don't know if he's going to speak up or not. He should be on the call. But his barricades were stolen 5 times.
I got it.
They replaced them. Yes.
I want to hear from him.
Okay.
Janine, can you bring Jim Seller if he's there?
Yeah, I'm bringing him over now. Jim?
Oh, it's Jim. Jim? Can you unmute yourself? Okay, so doesn't look, I don't know whether Jim is able to speak or not.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone. So, yeah, the 21st Street was selected by the city last year during the pandemic as an open street. So we just started to, we researched it. We really didn't know what it was about. So we started to maintain the barricades and start to educate people. And I've seen a big difference in the past year where people have, come together. They pick the barricades up now rather than drag them, and they open the bike lanes. And I see, yeah, and particularly on Sunday, it seems to be a popular day. It's like skateboards but throughout the day. And yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. We were just maintaining it, and it seemed to be a nice way to bring people together and let people, walk in the street. And there are deliveries that come by bicycles and, that are on sidewalks. So it allows people to spread out a little bit more. So that's our story. So.
All right. Can you bring, there is a whole lot of people in the Q&A. Can you bring Gretchen Connelly?
Okay.
So that they can speak up instead of.
Yep, I'll bring over Gretchen and Caroline.
All right, Gretchen. Hello, Gretchen. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much for recognizing me, and thank you so much for taking the time to hear this important issue. I just wanted to air my support of this open street. I rent on 21st. I am on 21st all of the time. And I think, you know, it's important to not rely on just body count at any given moment in time as a reflection of utilization and enjoyment. And, you know, somebody else already made this reference and I put it in the chat, but I don't think that if 21st is not a truck route, which it's not, then any increase in truck traffic on 19th would not necessarily be a result of 21st being closed. So I don't think it's fair to necessarily look at those as a cause and effect situation. I completely agree that I wish that there was a better solution than the French barricades, and I strongly feel that DOT should be investing more in better ways to close these streets. But would also like to point out, as somebody who also spends time on a street that is not an open street, that the ability to hear the sound of barricades being moved can actually be considered somewhat of a luxury in New York City, because it's significantly nicer than ambulance sirens and idling trucks and buses and horns and all of the other sounds that we hear around the city. And so with that, I would just say thank you so much to everyone who is helping to maintain this street. I do my best to make sure that the barricades are in place. And also, thank you, Dale, move them out of the way when a driver legitimately needs to come through. I think that the more that we all come together to do that makes this program a better part of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
what
Carol.
about Carolyn? Carolyn was also on the in the.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm just here as a resident on 22nd Street, the open street between 7th and 8th Avenue. I've lived here 30 years. And I think someone mentioned earlier that the barriers get dragged every few minutes on 22nd Street, probably on both streets. And that's true. And I think that is testimony to how devoted we all are to our open street. I'm on my block a lot. I'm a writer. Both my partner and I write from home. We did before the pandemic. So we're out and about a lot. And since our street became an open street, it's amazing how much we stand around on our sidewalk and chat with our neighbors. Not neighbors only from our block, but from other surrounding blocks as well. And that's all. It's just really lovely. And I never thought I would be kind of speaking out like this. I'm quite nervous, but it's made things so civilized and livable.
Thank you, Caroline. Do we have any other speakers?
I see Paul Crickler, Rob Walker, Barack Friedman, and Alan.
Well, let's go to Rob first, and then we'll go to Paul and Barack.
Chris LeBron also has his hand up.
Hey, everyone. I, like Dale, every time I pass and I see a car, I will stop so they don't have to get out, and I will remove it, whether it's 21st and between 9th and 10th, or 22nd between 8th and 7th. I love the programs, but that being said, the community has really got to be involved. There's got to be a partner there, and there's got to be that partnership, and there's got to be an oversight of that. Jim, are you part of an organization, or is there an organization, is there a grassroots, something that could take ownership of this to where, you know, have a little bit more oversight? With block associations, they normally would be that partner and step up and take care of those needs. But we're hearing right now people who live directly on this street are saying, you know, the block associations, we don't want it. And this is something, you know, we need to listen to. If there's another organization that wants to step up and take care of this, that might be the way to go and have their name put on it. But you know, when a block association directly says it's not working for us, you know, maybe we all need to sit down and sort of kind of sort things out. That's
Thanks,
it.
Rob. Thanks, Rob. Chris, if you don't mind, I'm going to go to Paul and then Barack, and then I'll go to you. Paul?
Thank you very much for the time. I'm hugely in support of keeping this open street and also adding to more. I live in New York City. I know that New York streets are for people who live locally, like you in the community board, but also for the rest of us in the city. So I'll represent those people, some people who live outside. I go through the area. Today I was actually on the way to the Hudson Greenway, the busiest greenway in the country, I think, and I went down the open street. Open streets are a wonderful thing for this city. That's one of the things that have come from the pandemic that have changed our city for the better, and we should be doing more of this and not less. Streets are quieter, less cars mean less particles in the air, less pollution. Obviously global warming, climate change is hugely impacted by all the cars. And last, but by no means at all least, less death on the street. We've had 190 people in this city killed this year alone by drivers. That's 190 people. It was 27 people in July alone, the last month I know for data for. One quick point on the ambulances, I think you should check with the fire department. They would much rather have streets where there are no cars that they can get through to the places they have to get to. Open streets have been shown time and time again to have quicker passage for emergency vehicles because the cars aren't in the way. It takes a couple of minutes or less to move a barrier out the way. Not even a couple of minutes, it's very quick. But you can't move cars out the way. I have to say, as a longtime resident of this city, I think it would be insane to close something that's so positive for our city, and we need many more of them. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. We'll go to Barack.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, CB4, sorry, for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to voice my support for the 21st Street Open Street. I think it's a wonderful program. It's safer for pedestrians. It's safer for people riding bicycles who need to get to the Greenway. And it is also good for emergency vehicles because they're not trapped behind cars. So I endorse the program. I would say extend 21st Street 2 blocks in either direction. So it goes from the Greenway all the way to 9th, 8th Avenue. You know, 34th Avenue in Queens is the model for an open street. Extending it longer makes it better. So I just want to voice my support for it. Thank you.
Chris LeBron.
I'll keep this brief, and I hope I keep it down to like 60 seconds. I've managed to utilize the open streets on 5th Avenue and Prospect Park Slope. I managed to utilize the open street on Vanderbilt Avenue in Prospect Heights, 34th Street Avenue in Queens and Elmhurst and Jackson Heights is a gem. We just lost an open street on 46th Street to traffic, and immediately, the quality of life has decreased. In an area where we do not have much green space, open streets provides a great answer. What we have here is a civic engagement problem. I'm so happy that this local block association has actually voiced that they have a problem here because it now forces us to come to the table. And it's necessary that whatever organization is going to manage this and keep this open. And I am for maintaining the 21st Street open street as a bicyclist who just came through there earlier this afternoon to the Greenway. It's necessary to bring the two parties together to mitigate and manage so that we don't regress and go back to how things used to be. So I hope that this committee and even the CB4 employees can bring these parties together. We can teach our neighbors how to build out nonprofit organizations that can maintain this and create a happy environment for everybody. That's all.
Thanks, Chris. I don't see, am I missing anyone?
Viren raised his hand. And Alan.
I see Al. Viren, are you speaking
yes.
again on this?
Sorry, should I go or somebody is going?
Should let's allow Alan Oster to speak and then we'll circle back.
Sounds good.
Good evening. Thank you, Dale. Thank you. Do you folks hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was former president of the 400 Block Association when the street became an open street. And at that time, of course, the pandemic had opened up. Kids were playing on the street. It was a safe venue for them. Once Clement Clark Park, and I want to repeat what Sandy said. She's touched on all these points. The street became a very quiet street, which is nice for a lot of folks, but to the point of air pollution, I think what's happened, and it's been brought out, we've always had truck traffic on 19th Street. We've had truck traffic on 22nd Street coming down. There are signs everywhere. So the enforcement situation is something that has not been really up to par. 22nd Street, the open street going down 8th Avenue, it's a little different than 21st Street. Traffic going uptown on 8th Avenue. Folks are not going to make the right turn on 22nd Street because it's closed off, but they will make it on 23rd Street, which is a commercial street. Traffic going south on 9th Avenue is going to bypass 21st Street and go over to 19th Street. So yes, the air pollution on 21st Street is probably a lot better, but it's probably a lot worse now on 19th Street. So that's something that is not fair for the folks that are already being hammered by pollution and noise on 19th Street. So it's complicated, as they say. You know, there are pluses and minuses to this subject, both sides. My personal observation is that the street isn't being used. I don't see people walking in the street. I walk my dog there a couple of times a day. I've walked around the street. I've closed the street. I've moved the barricades for people myself. I don't know if it really works at this point in time. The idea of getting better gates on and doing it that way, perhaps that might be something down the road. If that ever happens, which I don't see how that's going to happen, but you never know. The city will get off and do something positive in terms of helping the community resolve these kind of issues. So I think if I leave it up to the Block Association, I leave it up to the members who live there to make that decision. It's great for a lot of people who are using it, passing through, driving by, and I appreciate that. But people have to live there, people have to use it, people have to put up with the noise sometimes that is from the moving of the gates. And we're passing along truck traffic, car traffic over to other residents, and I don't think that's fair to them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Viren, back to you.
I think I'm just going to echo what Alan just said. I think the larger issue is, I mean, we all love the open streets, right? I would actually love to see this, like every alternate street becomes open street if I had a way. But I think the question is, how do you make it work? Number one. Design solution is one suggestion that I'm making. The second suggestion is who manages this program at the city level? Is it under DOT's purview, or is it some other new agency that they need to formulate? I don't know. But I think as a committee, we should be able to write something to the city that we are in support of such and such program, but we really need to understand the nitty-gritty of it, because it's not something that is left to the whim of folks who want it and folks who don't want it, right? So there has to be some sort of mechanism that everyone can come together and appreciate and understand to make this work for everybody in the community. I mean, that's, you know, I'm just wondering, as a committee, we're listening to all the conversations, but what is it that we can do in terms of making this work? So that is my suggestion. Maybe we write letters, I don't know. And this last question that I want to ask, and maybe Christine can sort of educate me a little more on this. Isn't city planning to make open state permanent program, or am I mistaken?
It is a permanent program now.
So do they have some agency that sort of oversees?
This is DOT, it's not city planning. What city planning is about restaurants, open restaurants. It's not open streets. But open streets, the mayor has already made a statement that those two things were permanent. And the question is, your question is good. It's about, what are the protocols and what are the procedures? But, and the design, I think the design is much, I'd like to make a comment about everybody saying, well, nobody's using it. There are many streets in New York which have the roadway, which are used, 2-3 cars every 10 minutes, which I would consider it's not being used. But when there are cars going through those streets, and there are very few of them, nobody makes the comment, it's not being used. And I think there is a little bit of a perception here or adjustment of, if you create a sidewalk and there are not 2,000 people on that sidewalk, are we going to say, let's remove the sidewalk? Probably not. We think the sidewalk is something good, generally speaking, and it should be there. And so I think we need to think about to me, the logic about it's not being used is, clearly there are people using it. We had 12 people writing or speaking about this street. And, typically when one person speaks, that represent more people. So it's just because we don't see them, that doesn't mean that they are not being used. And being used may not be the criteria for keeping an open street. So that's my thought. I don't know. I think we have heard a lot of people which are very enthusiastic. We have heard the Block Association who say, well, there is noise and it's annoying. We don't know whether there are stores or not. In fact, they are not. And I don't know. I feel personally that I don't know that we are in a position to say yes or no. I think we're in a position of, as Viren says, to raise some issue with the city and say, okay, here is a situation. What do we do about it?
Agreed.
How do we manage those things? What are the criteria for success? And just because you don't have, let's say they had the organization here, Jim would have brought a whole bunch of people having parties during the summer. You would all come back and say, oh my God, there's a lot of noise. So I realize, I think we need to ask to have the city helping us. We need to ask a bunch of questions and say, okay, can we change the design?
Yeah.
Can we change the, what is the activation? And should there be an activation? It should be the Block Association deciding to activate. And then what are going to be the criteria?
Christine, you froze.
Yeah, that's my view. I don't know.
No, I totally agree with you. I think we raise the concerns, we raise the issue, but we also make recommendations so that they have something that they hear from us as well.
And I think the community could your point about time, if the community wanted to have some hours where it's open or not, and maybe accommodate some of those concerns, maybe that's a discussion that we could help mediate.
Exactly.
What block, the Block Association on 21st Street is against, what block in the vicinity would those people recommend? Because
no, I don't think you want to recommend anybody else.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to go down that.
This is not, we are just discussing
David,
about this one.
All right,
We're not going to go down that. We're not going to go down that road.
All right. The other thing is, I think the major problem is the way the barricades are designed. If the design is changed, this would be very simple. I tend to agree with what Barrick Friedman said, that we should expand it rather than having one little isolated.
No, but that's the point that
if they're consecutive, if they're consecutive, then I think it would work much better.
Yeah, that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's an issue that, we should consider.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where I am. I'm really open to anybody, but I'm hearing a lot of support and some against, and there are some design concern, there are some timeline concern, and I think that we can ask the city to help us on some of that.
Yeah. And also, I think we should also make sure that the borough president's office is tied into this process.
And one other thing, Dale, and I wouldn't sort of focus down to 21st Street block. We should have this as a conversation about a district-wide situation so that they understand that this applies to a larger program much more than just simply trying to solve one problem.
So what we could do is table it for next meeting and have like a more a larger discussion about, how do we manage those things? Because who is that? I mean, Christopher has the same situation where, from one day to the next, something changed, and we don't have a vehicle of any kind to, bring it to the city or mediate or have a discussion. And I want to thank the Block Association to bring it up to our meeting.
Agreed.
Great, thank you.
So I think the motion would be to table it to next month as a larger discussion.
Yes.
Agreed. And perhaps in the meantime, either the office or the borough president's office could, work towards resolving some of these complaints.
Yeah, Jim, would you be open to that? Jim Thieler?
Hello, hi.
Yeah.
Open to
having a discussion with the Block Association and ourselves to discuss any issues there and see whether there are.
I mean, sure. I mean, it's like, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Great. Christine, thank you everyone for bringing this to our attention. Christine, I really have to, I'm expected at a dinner and I have to get ready for it. Do you think you can chair the rest of the meeting?
You owe me big time.
I am already deep in debt to you.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you everyone. Christine is taking the helm.
So Janine, who is presenting on the alternate side parking? Or is it Blake? He's going to discuss that.
I believe Blake was the one who brought it to our attention.
Yeah, for sure. And, I don't think it's something that we're going to necessarily solve in one meeting, but I did want to bring it up as it was an issue raised at ACES, which, as you know, David and I sit on both transportation and ACES. So our alternate side parking came up at ACES in the context of sanitation, where because of the reduction in mechanical broom sweeping as a result of the COVID cuts, there seems to be more litter around cars. And one hypothesis is that cars are not being moved with the same frequency because it becomes, almost cheaper to just take the tickets by not moving your car rather than with the reduced frequency, rather than making that effort to move the vehicles. And there may also be some changes in enforcement, which is something that we need to ask DSNY about when they're coming into ACES as well, if there have been changes in enforcement practices along with the cuts that were associated with COVID. So, it's leading to these street litter issues. I think there's also some confusion that came up among some drivers where the actual schedule might not match with what had been posted either as a sign or on the website. So the kind of upshot of this is that, we're wondering if this committee might, have some questions or have some discussion with DSNY regarding enforcement practices around the mechanical brooms and, the alternate side parking, which, clearly falls into the transportation remit.
But isn't it, oops, yeah, isn't it that, so if it's nearly 90% or 95% a sanitation issue, shouldn't that be ACE doing that?
Yeah, we can. I think the plan was, and Alan's, I think, still on the call as well. And he and Kit are kind of making the agenda here. But if it's all right with this committee, we can incorporate any questions that come up here into that discussion.
Right. Right.
Hopefully next month.
So I don't know. I mean, my questions would be: first of all, do they have the same schedule than they used to have, right? And did they communicate that schedule to everybody? And then, I mean, if people now think that they can ignore the tickets, I think we should increase the summons.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of capability they have to increase the summons.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be what anybody else, or Tina is as
Yeah, the only thing that I was going to say is they definitely have the ability to change the summons, because from what I remember in 2020, they increased from $45 to $65. Initially, it was only above 96th Street. And then I think it became, they changed it to $65 across the borough, across the city. So it was increased. In terms of changing the schedule, from my experience in the past, I can say that sometimes if you're a driver and if you aren't paying attention to alternate side parking, you better be looking at the Twitter site, because the parking signs are often wrong based on snow conditions and everything else. There should be a system that obviously DOT is speaking to sanitation, but I've always assumed that was the case. But that's all I was going to say. I mean, I can say that certain drivers that I spoke to were not happy about the increase to $5. So you're right. Other drivers might be persuaded not to violate the rule if it were increased. Yes.
Okay, David?
Yeah, I don't think we ought to play around. I think we ought to have tow trucks behind the sanitation vehicles and tow the cars. This is tickets, schmicket. Tow them, get them out so we can clean the street. The objective is not to penalize these people. The objective is to have clean streets. Therefore, tow them so the guy can clean, or the gal, whoever's driving that sweeper. And that's it. And you'll see after a couple of months that this won't happen. If you ticket this way, you got to do firm action and get it done with. Otherwise, it's not going to be resolved.
And there is another question along those lines, which is, I mean, their people can give tickets, right? The sanitation people.
I do believe they have, sanitation police that are in front of the rooms.
Yeah, right. So the question is whether the sanitation police could have access to the tow trucks, at least for a while, and then you get some press, and then you get, people get back into the mood, the regular thing, Rob?
I'm just basically echoing what everyone else said. The streets are bad. 24th between 10th and 9th is horrible. Even between 9th and 8th. And a lot of people just aren't moving their cars, They're not ticketing the way that they used to. They're not pushing them to move. I think, it was mentioned that the schedule is even off. But if we could get things back to normal and do what we need to do in this community to make our streets a lot nicer and more vibrant, I'm all for it.
Now, could we use that excuse to change the regulations? What I'm saying is that when you can have your cars towed away, or the threat is to say, okay, if people are not moving, we're going to put a no standing regulation. And then you have really a real benefit to everyone.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see if DSNY does keep track of areas that are particularly problematic, areas where consistently
Right.
cars don't move, and then, maybe can bring that information back to this committee, to look at if those are really places where cars should even be.
But then you're penalizing the cars or the drivers that are moving and doing the correct thing within the law. I mean, obviously, we're not for free car storage, but that's not even what we're discussing. But, if they're, why would you penalize? I just think the towing would be the most quickest, obvious way. It's, first of all, they won't most likely do it again unless they're nuts. Two, the sweeper then would be able to sweep. Whereas
Yeah, but David, at the end,
the sweeper can't sweep because the car is still there.
If you want to be strategic and say, let's use that to have a bigger agenda, which is, do we really need all these cars parked, all the time? And you say,
yeah,
okay,
because
well,
95% of the time, the motor car is idle. It's not even moving. It's a waste. I understand that. But
that's what I'm saying, is that you take this opportunity to say, look, if people are not moving their cars, you are not behaving, we are taking it away from you. And here we go.
Right, but I still suspect, and I could be wrong, a majority are moving their cars. There's a significant minority that are not. So I think, I mean, I'm for either way. If you want to go with the no standard thing, I'm willing to go with that. I mean,
Rob, do you have a new point, or it's an old end? Okay, so Blake, you have your questions.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback, and you have the questions for DSNY next month. Thank you.
So the agenda next was going to be sidewalk maintenance. I think we have not enough time, and it's too late to dive into this big blob. So I think we're going to postpone that to next month. And although the good thing is we received an answer from DOT, and it was pretty substantive. So I thought it was good, but there is also a lot of sanitation issues that need to be asked directly through sanitation. And then the fiscal year, I think you have probably seen the documents in the Dropbox. What I would like to ask is that you all look at all the letters we have done for the last 12 months and identify those that you think should be put, the request that should be put in the budget. Because what we typically do on the budget is we update the budget, and what we do is we remove the things which have been done and closed, but then we are raising new issues for which we had sent letters. So before the next meeting, I'd like you to read all these letters and say, okay, this is really important. It should be in our budget and statement of needs, or this is small thing and it's not such a big deal. If you could do that, we would be very ready next month to decide together what should be added to the budget. But you all need to do a little bit of homework before that. And Janine will send a letter to everybody else who was not at the meeting to ask them to do the same thing.
Okay.
And I think Tina had a new business item, right?
Yeah, should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. An incident, well, at the Coliseum, which is between 58th and 60th, a week ago, there was a meeting and someone required medical attention. And it was noticed that it took a very long period of time for the ambulance to get to the building, even though Mount Sinai West is a block away. They heard, everyone heard the sirens, and then no sirens, and then the sirens returned.
How long was that? How long did it take?
It seemed like a long time. I don't want to say a wrong amount, but this person needed medical attention, and it was making everybody very uncomfortable, clearly. neighbor spoke to me about the fact that what can we do about it? It seems like bottom line is in terms of the Coliseum, there's a very roundabout way to get to us because 58th Street and 60th are both going west to east. And interestingly enough, 59th Street goes from to west, and 60th Street goes from east to west. So you have 2 blocks in a row that go from east to west. So an ambulance has to go basically 6 or 7 blocks out of its way to go to a building that's a block away. And today I was thinking, well, wait a second, there are no hospitals that I can think of other than Mount Sinai West in the district. I could be wrong, but I was looking, I Googled it, and I was thinking, does this even serve the entire district if the ambulance is going from east to west on 59th Street? It's not just about, in other words, I was thinking it's not just about the Coliseum, which makes no sense going uptown and then back, but also if somebody needs an ambulance, let's say at 42nd Street, you have Amsterdam, and then they go down to, I guess they go down to 11th, right? That would go downtown. But they still have to go down 2 avenues. So doesn't it make sense to either switch the direction of 59th Street or switch the direction on 60th Street and include the entire district? So the route isn't.
So this is an issue we have had. Do you know Suzanne Lan
She spoke to me, Suzanne. Yes.
This has been her pet peeve forever. And we tried, and then we were kind of abruptly turned down by Mount Sinai. I think what we could do is refresh that. Maybe you can give us a little bit of what happened that night, right?
Okay.
A little bit of a story, and then put it on the letter, and then send it to Assembly Member Rosenthal, who is very helpful in those things, and send it to Mount Sinai and copy Rosenthal and ask Rosenthal to help on that. Because the last time we couldn't get it done.
Wait, the last time what? Sorry.
The last time we tried, we couldn't get it done.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it was not successful. Now we could possibly pick it up again and say, we have an example. It's really shocking. And by the way, for the whole district, the fact that, this is totally at the north, and in order to go south, they have to go, add 7 blocks to their route is not right.
Right.
And then we can send a letter if you are all okay with that, for that purpose.
Okay.
But I think we're going to have to go to the elected because we have to ask them to help us.
Got it. So do you want me to do a draft letter?
Yeah, why don't you do a draft letter, and maybe Janine can give you the earlier letters we have done on that. Okay. And if you can do the draft, that'd be awesome.
Okay, great.
Okay. Any other topics? All good? That was a long meeting.
There are some people on the attendees list with their hands up.
Oh my God, yes.
Allow them to speak.
Sorry.
So Tatiana.
Hello? Hi.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me speak. My name is Tatiana. I'm a resident. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm a resident of Hell's Kitchen. I live between 10th and 11th Aves. I'm sure you all know about the horrible traffic going to, I guess it's the Lincoln Tunnel.
Yeah.
On 11th Ave, pretty much starting Wednesdays through Fridays. In the 40s, starting in the 40s. I understand, that's part of city living, but what I'm here to speak about is the bike lane. There's a dedicated bike lane on 11th Avenue. And I've noticed on a couple of occasions, and actually it's pretty much every time I'm on this bike lane and there's that awful traffic, cars are just like getting annoyed and just taking a shortcut and going on the bike lane.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's extremely dangerous. And I was just wondering if something could be done about it, such as, like in the West Side Highway on the bike lane there, they have those what are they called? Roads.
Yeah, Bollards.
Yeah. So something like that, because really these cars are swerving into the bike lane, just speeding down the bike lane, and it's a terrible situation. So I just wanted to bring it up and see what the committee thought.
So we earlier today, we talked about the bike lane on 11th Avenue, and we agreed to put in a paragraph about that and say we need attention on the north side.
Oh,
That's
great.
one thing. The second thing is that the DOT is changing signal timing at 40th and 11, so that there will be more green time for the northern section of 11th Avenue. So they're hoping that it's going to help a little bit.
Yeah, but this is, impatient.
No, I understand. But I mean, if you, I'm just giving you the update because I have the update.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, we're going to do that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
talking. Who else? Janine? Oh, Eric?
Eric and Alan.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's just, sorry, I know I'm talking a bit this meeting, but kind of a follow-up matter on some fairly old business. As you guys recall, you guys wrote a nice letter about mostly about the idling penalties back in late 2019.
Yeah.
Over to the DEP to Commissioner Sapienza. Commissioner Sapienza, I understand, sent that over to his head of idling enforcement, a lovely woman, Jerry Kelpin.
Yeah.
She wrote back to Bert Lazarin. As you'll recall, your proposal was raise the penalties to at least 1,000 for the first violation by a bus or truck, 2,000 for the second violation for a bus or truck, or 3,000 for a third violation by a bus or truck.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry wrote back that the DEP is limited by rule to a maximum penalty of $2,000, which is correct, and that she looks forward to working with CB4 to resolve the matter. It would certainly be possible for CB4 to propose a penalty schedule, which would greatly disincentivize idling, but still stay within that $2,000 max.
So Eric, why don't you draft a proposal and send it to us, and we can discuss it at the next meeting. What about that?
That sounds wonderful. I'd really appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Alan.
Hi. So if I could just take a moment just to step back to alternate side. I don't think the city has the resources nor the capability of towing cars off of a street, and it's not a viable alternative or suggestion. I would not want to be in an ambulance on 22nd Street when someone is trying to hook up a car and is having trouble. But enforcement's important, and I think somehow to change the rules and regulations, I think maybe we need to offer probably maybe the drivers something in terms of the stick and the carrot kind of thing.
Well, maybe you can put the boots. Maybe the sanitation people could have boots.
You could do that. I mean, exactly. But you need to change the regulations. I don't think. I've heard two things, that it's illegal to block a sweeper, but if you're sitting in your car, it's not illegal to block a sweeper.
And we can change that.
So we need to change that. I've spoken to a number of people in different block associations here in Chelsea, and this is a growing problem in all the streets. But the problem is also the sweepers. They often come down the street after 10:30. They often don't show up on days, and I can give you dates and times when that's happened. And maybe a lot of it has to do with the fact that they don't want to get in the middle of getting people to move their cars. You know, there's I don't know if you've ever seen these sweepers trying to maneuver down a street where some people have moved, some people haven't moved. And I give them a lot of credit for their patience in maneuvering these vehicles. Maybe we need to get together on this, ACES and Trans, maybe form up a little group to speak to DOT, speak to DSNY, and see what we can do about maybe and give the driver, as I was going to say, give the driver something. Why do people have to sit in their cars when a sweeper comes down the street and does a good job, cleans the street at 9:20? Why do they have to sit in their car till 10:30? If you ask DOT that question, they tell you, oh, well, maybe they have to come back and make a second pass. But if they did a good job the first time, they don't need to come and make a second pass. And if they can't do a first pass, they're not going to come back and do a second pass. So the logic behind that, anytime I've ever asked DOT, DSNY, why they need to have people sit in their car full time, that's the answer you get. Well, perhaps they have to come back and do the thing. But I think maybe we can set up something between the two committees and do a little research on this to speak to DOT, DSNY, NYPD also is involved in this in terms of.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, that's good. So if maybe Blake could be the point of contact, but we need a list of. I don't know who's he going to be the contact for. It's no, but what I'm saying is that between the two,
it could be Trans contact or ACES contact. I don't know. You got to flip a coin
right,
there.
for both. And my point is that is we need a list of questions, right?
Yeah, right.
Maybe like we did for the sidewalk. Let's make a list of questions. Could you do this? Could you do that?
Right.
And maybe send that over.
Yeah.
And then. So once you have the question, let's discuss it next month or whatever. You can get some information and we can drill into the problem.
Okay, we'll get together on that. The other thing, quickly, I just want to bring up 10th Avenue, 23rd Street. Have they finished their study yet, which they were supposed to do 4 months ago about the light change? People are still perplexed about what's happening on that intersection.
Are you talking about 23rd and 10th?
23rd and 10th Avenue.
I have a question for you, which is, I'm sorry for everybody, but
sure.
They are telling me, I thought there was a turn lane. Isn't there a turn lane today?
I've sent pictures. I've sent everybody information. We've spoken about this, several times. There is no red arrow.
No, but I mean, is there a turn lane physically?
Oh, is there a left? No.
There is not.
If that's the problem, then okay, that's the problem. I can understand that. Sometimes if you go,
that's the problem. They are studying how to do the turn lane now.
So, I mean, are they studying it?
Yes, they are. They are.
Do we have an idea when they may come up with a?
No,
because now we
don't. Maybe we can take that offline, Alan.
I know, but we need to put a little pressure on them on this.
I did. Every time I talk to them, I talk about that. I say, where are you on that?
It's exasperating. I get people asking me, when is anything that you cross 10th Avenue, you get 6 or 7 seconds.
Alan, I know the point. I know the problem.
You know the problem. So I don't know, it's.
Alan, I think we have 6 or 7 people here which are not as passionate as you are about 23rd and 10. So let's take that offline. I have been putting as much pressure as I can and talking to Ed Pinker, talking to everybody I know. And we just received an email saying that they are studying whether to do the turn lane or not. So
Okay.
that's where we are. Now, if we want more ammunition, we need the elected officials. You need to get the elected officials involved.
I understand. We sent an email to their, okay. All right, I got you. I got you.
Or send it to Gail Brewer and say, Gail, can you help?
Gotcha. All right.
I've used all my powder.
I'm sure you have, Christine. I'm sorry to get.
I know, it's frustrating. It's insane.
It is. It is.
It's insane. It's very, very frustrating.
I wanted to bring. Oh, okay. I wanted to bring something else quickly. DOT did some upgrades on a light pole on 22nd Street between 9th and 10th. I think it was for the bike rack. They removed the bike racks. They're putting the bike racks back. They put some kind of a computer box on the light pole with an antenna. But this is Highland Datacom. However, they failed to replace 2 high-intensity lights that used to light up the park.
Yeah, so now you have to go 311, and they are very responsive on that stuff.
311, the phone app, you can't use the phone app. You have to probably call them, I would imagine.
No, you can go online on your computer.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
I just to make you aware of that.
Yeah.
Put it in your notebook.
Jesus.
Just a quick point, Christine.
Aye.
Just take 2 seconds. I'm going with your no standing idea and revoking the tow truck idea unless no standing doesn't work. So I don't want anyone to think anything different.
Okay.
No standing, 9 to 10:30.
Yeah.
That's all. Easy, right?
Right.
Thank
Make
you,
it
David.
simple. Make it simple. Okay, guys.
Thank you for an interesting meeting.
Thank you so much. Great meeting, very intense, a lot of stuff. And yes, we have a lot of work to do. So thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye.
Have a good evening, everyone.